Hello everyone, this is Daryl. I work as a software developer, and in this video you'll see how I naturally work through a LeetCode challenge. This is a problem that I'm seeing for the first time, and I'll explain myself as I work through it. My solution won't likely be the best or most efficient, it'll just be the one that I come up with first as I'm kind of working through the problem. So this is another medium problem, number 6 on the website, Zigzag conversion. So let's read through this one. So the string this is written in a zigzag pattern on a given number of rows like this. Okay. So it looks like it goes down and then up and down and then up and down and up and down. And then read line by line like this. So like after you do this, you read it across and across and across. Okay. Write code that will take a string and make this conversion, give it a number of rows. So string convert string s int num rows. And so they show that example, which is with this and this example. Okay, so this is important, and one of my questions I had here. So there's 4 rows here, and so that's kind of how that works. It goes down and then diagonal up, down, and diagonal up and down. Okay, so you can assume with 5 then it would have to be 1 additional, and then if it's a number of rows 1, the output is a. Okay, so length is going to be between 1 and 1,000. S consists of English letters, lowercase and uppercase, comma, and period. Number of rows is between 1 and 1,000. Wow, okay. So of course the very straightforward way to try to solve this problem would be to do some sort of crazy thing where you create like a XY coordinate hash map, multi-dimensional hash map, where you can put these characters at each of those places and then you try to like read them in order. That's kind of like the very straightforward way, but I think there's a better way, both computationally, and that would be a lot less work to set up. And I think that better way to do this is going to just have to do with looking at how this works and then looking at, if you know that it's 3 rows, kind of like, you know, you start with P, seeing that we need to have 3 rows and then calculating, okay, if there's 3 rows, then the next value must be 1, 2, 3, 4 forward. It must be this. And then continue doing that until there is not a 1 that's 4th forward. And then you go through the loop again for the second row. And you would, you know, start with this one and then say, okay, well now it's the second row and there's only 3 rows. We know that this must be this number, and then it must be this number, and then it must be that number. Yeah, I think that's going to be the way to go. Making an algorithm that just kind of solves that. Still not going to be super easy, but I think it'll be better and more efficient. So let's go ahead and go with that. So we're going to bring that over. We're going to make a result string. And this is going to be a var because we're going to keep appending to it. And we'll definitely return it. But in here now we're going to want to loop through for each row. So for I and 1 to num rows, and we do know this is going to be at least 1. So we're going to need these values difference down. That's going to be equal to num rows minus I. Val difference up. That's going to be equal to I minus 1. So it's a var current index, and we're going to start at 0. We'll just do a while s dot length is greater than current index. And you know, we actually want this to be, we're trying to make this all dynamic, so let's make this equal to I minus 1. So I know it's going to be the same as this, but it means something different, so I think it's fine. So we know that we should be able to access the current index and put it into result string. So we're going to add current index. We're going to add that to result string because that's where we're at. We just confirmed with this while loop that this should be valid. We shouldn't get an out of bounds exception. But now we need to figure out what we need to advance to for the next index. Difference down for like this first example is going to be 2 because it's going to go from here and it's go 2 down. But then to get to the next one, the difference, the difference down, well, if it's 2 from the end, then it's going to be multiplied by 2. It's going to be 2 plus 2. To get to the next one. And then because you're going to always need to go difference down, difference up. But if either difference down or difference up is 0, then don't do it. It has to be at least greater than equal to 1 to do it. So like if you were in here and you were talking about the second row here, the difference down is going to be 2. And so you move forward 4. And then you look at difference up and it's 1, and so you go forward 2. So let's make it these values times 2. And let's make it these values times 2. And so first, you're always going to start with down. So we'll have to make this a toggle. Is going down, we'll make that true. You're going to set that, and then you're going to say if is going down, current index plus equals difference down. And then set is going down to false. Else, current index, oh, and actually remember you only want to do this if difference down is greater than 0. Yeah, so the same thing here. If the difference up is greater than 0, let me think about this actually. Actually, no, that's wrong. We want to, because yeah, if it's going down, but we're at the bottom, all you want it to do is toggle this, but you would want it to not add the result string as well. Let's just make it so that we can compare with this index and the previous index that the while loop hit. So we'll just say, and we'll put it next to this one, last index is going to be equal to, we'll just put -1 so that the first time it loops through, this will never match. And then we'll say if current index is not equal to last index, then add it to the string. And after this, we'll say, we'll set last index is equal to current index right here. So then in here, we don't need to worry about this. Just go ahead and try adding that, and you know, it might add 0, but that's fine because when it comes back up here, the current index and the last index will match. So it won't do this. Yeah, and then it will continue and the switch will be different. Yes. But in this case, we'll do current index plus equals difference up. It is going down, it's equal to true. And so this should keep going until it goes to it gets too high, and then it's going to go to the next row and perform the next row. And then after it's done with all of that, we should have our result string. Now I will be very surprised if this works on the first try, because this is kind of a weird algorithm, to be honest. It actually worked. Very interesting. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and submit then and see. Okay. Last time limit exceeded. Okay, so let's look at the details. We got a time execution exceeded, which is very interesting because, of course, this is an extraordinarily simple example, so I'm going to assume something crazy went wrong. So if it was just an A, well, let's go ahead and just try debugging it. And so I assume that if I go ahead and hit play on this, it probably won't finish anywhere near fast. Yeah, it's just like running forever. Okay, so let's poke in here and see what's going on. So, and let me, of course, make sure I get my correct step over and step intos. Okay. So we're at 1. Difference down and difference up are both 0, which to me sounds correct. Current index is equal to 0. Last index -1 is going down is true. Now it's going to go in here. They're not the same. So it's going to go ahead and make that the result string. So the result string right now is A, which is what I would expect to be the answer at the end of this. So last index equals correct index is going down, so it's going to add 0, and then, okay, I see the problem. The problem is that it's 0 in both sides. If it's 0 in both sides, this is going to go on forever. I think it's perfectly fine in this case to just make a edge case check for this and just say if s.length is equal to 1. And we'll probably want to check if it's blank too, but here we'll just return s. We'll just say or s. Actually, they said it's going to be at least 1, but I think this is perfectly fine to put as an answer. Just add an edge case for that. Okay, so time limit exceeded with A, B, and 1. So I think what we need to do is instead of checking the s.length, let's change it to say if, I mean, to be honest, this will perfectly work. If num_rows is equal to 1, then just return the string. I mean, it's extraordinarily straightforward if it's a 1, because then it's not going to be zigzagging at all. So that should cover these issues. And real quickly, I do want to kind of see, does this show... Okay, I think all it does is start from test case 1 and then it stops when it gets an error. I'm pretty sure that's what it actually does. Oh, what is it not like? Some syntax thing. Maybe I copied over something wrong. Let me try this again. Yeah, okay, so let's try submitting now. All right, we got success. That one wasn't too bad for a medium challenge. All right, let's go ahead and go over the code real quick. And actually, let me double check on the performance. So above average on the runtime and way above average on memory usage. So this tells me that the vast majority of people probably did do something where they tried to create like a matrix and did something like that and didn't do what I did, where I just tried to kind of mathematically, I don't know if that's the right word for it, but just figure out, I guess logically is the actual correct word for that. Logically just figure out how to calculate what the next value would be. So let's go through the code real quick. So first we're getting our result string, which is just a blank string. Or we're setting that to blank. So first we're just setting result string to blank. That's going to be eventually what we end up returning. It's going to start off as empty and we're going to add values to it. Here's our check that we needed to add when we were doing the troubleshooting. Basically, if num_rows is equal to 1, don't worry about this formula because this is not going to work because both of these values are going to be 0 and this while loop is going to go on forever. But we can simply just return s if there's only one row because then it doesn't actually zigzag at all. So if the num_rows is not 1, because of the definition of the problem, it's going to need to be greater than 1 and actually less than a certain value. But it's going to be greater than 1. So then that means we need to go into here. So first we're calculating difference up and difference down. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at from whichever row you're at right now. So whether you're at row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, whatever, how many rows are below you, right? So if there's 4 rows and I'm at the second row, which would be index 1, but it's the second row, then num rows is 4, and I, in this case, would end up being 2. So that would be 2, because it takes 2 to get to the bottom, to get to the final row. And then we multiply this by 2 because if we're trying to figure out what the next value is and we're going down in the zigzag, we're going to need to go down 2, and then we're going to need to go up, and it's kind of up and to the right with the diagram, but we're going to need to go up another 2 to get to that value. And the exact same calculation for up. We're saying how many rows is above where we're at, multiply that by 2 because we're going to need to go up that amount and then diagonally and then down that amount to get to the next value in the current row. Then we're just creating current index. That's the main one that we're going to kind of be using here. And that's going to be I-1. And this is just important for the first value when we're first starting to go through one of the rows, because we're just getting the first index of the first item in that row. So if we were in the second row, 2 minus 1 would give us 1, which is the second index. It's going to be the first one of the second row though. So then we're going to have last index. I'm just setting this to -1 so that when we go in here, the current index will not equal to last index, and so this check will pass, and this will happen the first time, which I want to ensure happens. Is going down is a Boolean that we set to true, and that's basically just saying, are we going down or are we going up? That's essentially what it's saying, and I have it set to is going down as the name because we're going to start going down. So then we go into the while loop. So while the string's length is greater than current index, aka I'm just checking while my current index kind of marker is somewhere in the string, right? I'm not going to get an out of bounds array exception or anything like that. So while we're still within the string with our current index, we're going to check if the current index not equal to the last index. And what we're checking for here is, in the case where we're at the top row or at the bottom row, either difference down or difference up is going to be 0. And so later on, we add the current index, or we add the difference down or difference up. And if that number is 0, then the next time we loop back through, the index won't have changed. And so we, of course, don't want to add the same value multiple times. So that's why we check that the current index is not equal to the last index. And if it's not, if we did move somewhere, then we want to go ahead and add it to the result string. Then we set last index to the current index because we already got past this check. So we're setting that up for the next loop and the next iteration. Then we're just going to say, hey, are we going down right now? If we're going down, then add difference down to the current index and set is going down to false because we're switching it because the next time we want to go up. And then consequently, if we are going up, then we want to set current index equal to add difference up to it and set is going down to true because we want to go down next. And then after we go through that entire for loop, all we need to do is return the string, which is what we'll have been adding values to this entire time, and it will have the result string. All right, that's going to be it for this one. Hope that helped you guys out. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.